Excellencies, distinguished guests, we are at a very serious and challenging point in time. On top of the climate crisis and COVID-19, we all face the triple crisis of food, energy and finance, aggravated by the war in Ukraine. We need to accelerate energy transition across the world, and we need to combat the negative effects of war and climate change, leaving no one behind. In times of crisis, the poor and most vulnerable are hit the hardest. To address the global challenges, multilateral cooperation is more important than ever. Luckily, we know what to do. We need to deliver on the ambition for a sustainable world that is clearly presented in the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals and live up to the Paris Agreement and the goal of keeping 1.5 degrees alive. To get there takes leadership and solidarity, and Denmark is ready to do its part. From 2023, Denmark expects to contribute around 1% of the goal of mobilizing $100 billion in climate finance for developing countries. This is more than our fair share. It also takes international cooperation and partnerships. And as the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. The COVID-19 crisis, in all its tragedy, has also shown that the private sector plays an important, resourceful and innovative role in solving key societal challenges. We need to harness this energy for the benefit of all. In Denmark, we have made a clear priority to strengthen cooperation with the Danish businesses. We have formed 14 dedicated climate partnerships with all parts of Danish business. They bring concrete solutions and recommendations to the table. And to ensure that all of Denmark is united in reaching our national target, a 70% cut in emissions by 2030. The partnerships have shown that businesses are clearly able to strive higher than the bottom line. They are keen to be first movers and inspire others with sustainable solutions. It is a priority of the government that businesses translate their potential into action so that they can contribute to meeting the ambition of the Paris Agreement and the SDGs. Corporate sustainability is becoming a competitive advantage and will increasingly become a license to operate. And it has never been more important to cooperate across countries and sectors to deal with the triple crisis and reach our global targets. Across the global north and south, across the public and private sector. We need all hands on deck, leaving no one behind. Let us go far together. Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, today we are meeting to discuss business solution to the intercrossing crisis looming on all continents for different reasons, at different speeds, and to develop a recommendation for immediate action for governments and the business community. 2022 has depended challenges in energy, stagflation, COVID recession, due to disruption of global supply chains. The world's leading economies are slowing down. According to the Bloomberg forecast, the economy of the United States and the European Union is expected to decline in the next 2 years. Since 1980, the average growth rate of the world economy has been 3.5%, and in the near future, this figure will fall to about 1%. And this is bad news for developing countries, because the USA and the EU are the key markets of the world. Russia's attack on Ukraine caused a food crisis that led to rapidly rising food, fuel, and fertilizers prices around the world. But there are also answers to these challenges. My country has been tested by war for 7 months. Aggressive Russian attack destroyed more than 30 years of stable life in our country. Just as Ukrainian business began to pick up speed after the lifting of pandemic restrictions, we were attacked by Russia. And now I am addressing you from my workplace in the center of Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. The Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry has been working for all the period, just like more than 60% of Ukrainian businesses. We endured and became a component of the phenomenal stability of Ukraine as a state. The defense, financial, banking, and educational systems of our country have passed the test. Our public and private sector has not stopped functioning for a single day. One of the reasons is the lesson from the pandemic. We have learned well how to work in extreme conditions by digitalization all areas of the economy. However, the war revealed the weak parts of our economy. The issue of logistics and export became the most acute, as it is not possible to digitize the delivery of goods. Production is concentrated in the different regions of the huge country. 20 million tons of wheat were planned to be exported by sea in 2022. And now 18 Ukrainian ports are now blocked due to the Russian attack. At the western borders, there are 40-kilometer truck queues. Thanks to assistance of the EU and Turkey, it was possible to open the sea grain corridor in July. Since the departure of the first vessel with Ukrainian proviant, 3.9 million tons of agriculture products have already been exported. A total of 169 ships left Ukrainian ports with food, which was delivered to the countries of Asia, Europe, and Africa. Thus, joint efforts managed to prevent a global food crisis. Before the war, Ukraine monthly exported 7 million tons of agriculture products. And this is a huge problem. Ukraine granaries are overflowing with grain, which slows down future sowing. Even in the condition of the war, about 69 million tons of the cereals, legumes, and oilseeds will be collected this year, which is one of the top 5 indicators for 30 years. The collection for all crop groups is 1.53 times higher than the domestic needs of Ukrainians. And this means that Ukraine's food security is currently fully guaranteed. However, global food security depends on the grain corridor and the implementation of Ukraine's visa-free transportation system with the EU. The solidarity of our European partners became the key to the Ukraine's stability. Partnership is the basis for stability and development in business and international projects. Now we consider our task to put Ukrainian small and medium-sized businesses on the Euro rail. In June, Ukraine became a candidate for EU membership. and the European integration of business is a reversible path, the way for solidarity and new opportunities. Right now, the ultimate task is the survival future of Ukrainian businesses, especially exporters, that are closely dependent on Europe. It is very important that after 6 months of war, we see a movement towards the EU side, a desire to help. Support of the SME is among the key direction for strengthening sustainability. It is necessary to support small and medium-sized businesses now so that they become the driver on Ukraine's reconstruction. Among the requests of Ukrainian businesses now are assistance in opening offices, production facilities in safer parts of Ukraine and EU countries, consultation on doing business in EU, support in the digital transitions, obtaining grants, free participation in exhibitions and activation of business missions. Recently, during a European Economic and Social Committee meeting, urgent targeted support of Ukrainian businesses in wartime conditions was called for. Businesses in the rural areas and the occupied territories need special support. Yes, the Ukrainian army has just liberated the Kharkiv region, but even businesses were that driving force to make the destroyed cities liveable. Post office and delivery services already work in Izum, Balaklia, and Gdansk, and it will operate on whole territory of Ukraine soon. Ukrainians are capable of creating amazingly stable systems. We are ready to share our unique experiences and conclusions with our friends and partners. We are open to cooperation, especially now in the period of global changes. The situation has proved that solidarity and support at the level of states, communities, societies, and institutions have a decisive influence on sustainability. We face massive challenges: the creation of a powerful, modern, innovative, resource-efficient, investment attractive space, development of one of the largest European countries. Together with our partners, such ambitious goals do not seem unattainable. Sustainability will become the main export products of Ukraine. We are ready to share it with the world, and thank everyone for their support.
Good morning. It's a pleasure and privilege to be part of the 7th Annual SDG Business Forum. The topic of this session is Business Responses to Cascading Crisis, which, as you can imagine, is a tall task indeed. So let me start with a disclaimer. It is impossible in a few minutes to suitably address the full gamut of issues surrounding the complex topics of energy decarbonization with universal access and sustainable food and nutrition systems. But I will try and do my best. I'll start by stating what likely is obvious to many of you. There's a clear consensus today that the objectives of decarbonizing energy, achieving universal access to modern and clean energy services, reducing the environmental impact of food systems and making them more resilient to climate and other stressors are critical to our well-being. But we also know that addressing these objectives requires a significant deviation from a business as usual approach. In fact, it is well recognized now that moving towards these objectives, as with other domains relevant to the SDGs, requires a host of transformations. And since transformations, by their very nature, are both uncertain and disrupt the status quo, they may be seen as a threat. On the other hand, they also can be seen as an opportunity, depending on one's frame of reference. The context for these transformations is also complex. While a key underlying driver is a greater societal desire and hence demand for sustainable development, which basically represents a shift in the boundary conditions, events such as the war in Ukraine or the COVID crisis are shocks that cannot be fully predicted. Yet business has indeed shown that it can rise to the challenge. COVID diagnostic tests and vaccines that were rolled out in record time and at scale are a perfect example of this. Another example is the continuing rise of renewable energy, solar and wind power, that is both helping with decarbonization around the world in a significant way, but will also play a role in the longer-term response to the energy crisis resulting from the war in Ukraine. In the agricultural arena, firms are exploring how digital technologies can enhance the sustainability of food systems and make them more resilient to climate and other shocks. So there's no doubt in my mind that businesses can respond to these kinds of challenges. To me, though, a key question arises is how best to do so, given that we would like to move forward on these transformations as soon as possible. The upcoming 2023 Global Sustainable Development Report, of which I am a part, is focused centrally on this issue of how to best navigate sustainable development transformations. Some steps are directly within the purview of businesses, such as embracing transformations and developing strategies to engage with them as effectively as possible, reshaping priorities and allocating resources accordingly. Some steps will require partnerships with government and public agencies, with other firms, with academia, and with civil society, to name a few. It will not be a totally smooth ride. Transformations rarely are. But if the change is inevitable, the best approach is to make the best of it. But I also add that as businesses embark and continue on this path, they with their partners must also keep in mind the marginalized or vulnerable communities that often get sidelined in these transformation processes. To give an example, as we continue with deep decarbonization, it is critical to consider how this might open up opportunities for enhancing access to modern and clean energy services for the large number of people around the world that do not have these services at present. Similarly, as we make efforts to expand sustainable agriculture, we must also ensure that smallholder farmers can also be a full part of this transformation. So I want to end by saying that sustainability and justice must go hand in hand, and businesses can play a key role in making this happen. Thanks again for giving me the opportunity to deliver these remarks, and with that I'll stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gillian. I'm so glad that we could reconnect everybody and now the three of us are together and we can have continue this conversation. So Vitaly, good to have you back again. I had one more question. I think actually you answered quite well the issue of how you supported your employees during this challenging time. Also, your company, as a chemical company working to produce paint, etc., you've been quite concerned with issues of practicing environmental sustainability, for instance. Can you tell us how can chemical companies work towards environmental sustainability, and what do you see as the role of stakeholders and coalitions in supporting these efforts, so you're not just going it alone?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, of course, alone it's impossible to achieve anything, especially in so hard, maybe difficult topic like a sustainability. So, of course, we have, I see, two directions. First, it's more or less organic, which started several years ago in business in the business general in Ukraine, so international companies and also young generation request for something more interesting than only money and so on. And together with the different business via business association, it's a good development because all of them created own committee specialized on sustainability, and we part of them. So we see how together we can find and go to the government. Another topic which we like, I think all Ukrainians, Ukraine is a candidate to European Union, and due to this, we expecting, it's logical, absolutely, new legislation, new standards, especially for construction and for chemical industry as well. And due to this, we see even now some transformation, even during the war, some of new legislation or just a new, a new vision of potential legislation. So we are really happy that, and what I like also, government or some important stakeholders listening business via business association is a really good dialogue in our crisis mode. So and I see it's after the war it will be more and more and more. So we have organic. I mean, people wants to change it, and stakeholders and business. So it is synergy from my point of view. So I see a very not so optimistic, but I see it's optimism.
No, I think it's got a great dose of optimism because you're also starting with the vision and working towards it. So thanks very much. Now let's welcome Solange Ribeiro. Great to have you back, Solange. Solange is the Deputy CEO of Neoenergia, and she is also on the Vice Chair of the Board of UN Global Compact. So very happy to have you with us. Solange, a few questions for you. In this complex time of cascading crises, how relevant do you think the SDGs are today? And how do you address the SDG challenge, including issues of biodiversity and human development in this time of multiple crises?
Hi, Hafka. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I believe that this current crisis has really tested the mettle of the business. And when I see Vitaly here, I feel like the real, like say, how can a business live in such a difficult conditions? And as for us, I believe that now is even more important. The SDGs and the 10 principles, they really are excellent routes for us to get back and connect the strategy for the business to sustainability. Neoenergia work in the energy business. We produce power and we distribute electricity for 35 million people in Brazil. And we have 90% of our energy is renewable. And we really believe in clean, reliable, and smart energy. When we talk about the SDGs, this decarbonization, our investments towards renewable, and also in all the infrastructure that's needed, like the networks that are there to support that are really strong. We already touch all the SDGs, but I would say that we focus more. And the number 5, that's for gender. The number 7, access to clean energy. And the number 13, which is the climate change. In last July, we just released new ESG targets, tackling those SDGs, and mainly in putting all of them very clear how we can do that, how we can measure that, how we can measure the impact of those. That has been a huge discussion inside the company to make sure that we have achievables, that we know how to go and we know how to do. Like, let's say for as far as climate change, we have targets for reduce to 2030 just for 20 grams of CO2. In biodiversity, which is something very important, we have a biodiversity policy. We have nowadays a commitment for our new projects from 2030 would have no loss in biodiversity, but we are also investing a lot how to measure those impacts in biodiversity. We are running pilot projects in biodiversity disclosure project to make sure that we know how to measure the impact and know how to work towards to reduce that. Because I think nowadays the Secretary General used to say that it's very important to measure, to make sure that we know how to do, how to get there. And this has been a challenge for the companies. When you look in science-based target, for instance, it also has been something extremely important. And of course, we do care a lot about the social development of the areas where we are. We work in very poor areas in Brazil, for instance, and we understand the importance of our role in developing the regions and give the more and better jobs, I would say. One point that we've been working a lot as well is how to build a more equitable workforce. We decide to invest in diversity because we truly believe that diversity is a strength for us that combine different points of view and represent society that will serve in a better way. Gender, race equality, for instance, something that we picked up for that. And we now have targets for both, not just for leadership positions, for women and Black persons. And we really believe that when we put these two things together, sometimes it's tough, like it's difficult to it has to be a choice for the top management. It has to be something that we truly believe, and you have to have the courage to do that, because that sometimes can be a challenge. But you have to require an extra effort to make sure that you could maybe include affirmative policy for a while, have targets to really give you good opportunities and right opportunities for both. We took, for instance, we have a very good example. We took back in 2017 a decision to have women in the workforce for electricians, who are the ones who work with the wires on the street. And it what some people say, no, it's impossible. We say, no, it's possible. And we decide that we have to launch a school to form that women, to make them technicians, to really make them able to do the job. And we did. And this was a very disruptive program. It was really well recognized. And we training up to now like 600 women. And up to the 15% that we hired from those schools now are women. And you have to tackle, like say, to do this extra effort to train them. And as we train men, but we did the specific ones for that. And we truly believe that all of that you can only do with I saw that Vitaly just talked like multi-sectoral relationship. We have to work toward the boat. We have to align with different companies, with different ONG in order to do this. And it's very important to have the commitments and have to know how to get there. And again, the 10 principles are really a good route for that.
Great. Thanks so much. I mean, you started talking about your focus on renewable energy, and energy transition has been a big topic of conversation recently. Can you, and you've talked about how you've adapted and innovated, but so I want to focus in on what have been the challenges in this adaptation and innovation, although you have been a leader in this area.
Actually, the current crisis for renewable has demonstrated that a system based on fossil fuel is no longer sustainable. It's, in the past, renewable was there because of environment issues, climate issues, but nowadays there is a huge discussion about the security of the energy supply. Yeah? And I think this is something very important. The good side of that is that renewable has from a long way. I was in a panel yesterday when somebody remembered that in Brazil in the beginning, renewable was called alternative energy. Yeah, and it's a long way to route the path. The price went down, and nowadays and sometimes you have to innovate, to adapt the machines, to make sure that they are adapted to where they are. And nowadays, renewable in Brazil are extremely competitive in price. That it's something that can really make a difference for the country, because we have that in a good price in the right way, and we can work a lot to how to say provide that for the rest of the world. When we see green hydrogen, for instance, which is something else that we are working now, can be like something that can adapt. I used to say that a product that's made by renewable could have a value added to it, and countries should be able to do that. And for my country, at least for Brazil, would say that nature-based solution in renewable is a difference that can really make a difference for that. However, we have to have the conditions to have those investments. And part of my job is exactly to do the advocacy for that. We have to have the right regulatory, stable regulatory frameworks. When you look in Europe, for instance, right now, make sure that send the right signals to the market, to investors, to enable framework and policies that really can scale up renewables is very crucial. Like say one problem that we are facing, the administrative procedures are very complicated, take a long time. How we can override that? How can we do make sure that we do in a timely that we need? And things like that, I would say, once again, to promote all the partnership that is needed to do. But I think we have the solution in our hands, and we can make it, and the market is there to do. We
Yes.
if you
Thank you
think
so
some
much.
of the yeah.
I actually I want to go. I'm interrupting you because I want to go to a subject which is very close to my heart and my organization's heart, and that's micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. They make up over 90% of all businesses worldwide. And I wanted to ask you about how you at Neo Energia, how do you activate small businesses to support sustainable development, since they are such a big chunk of economies everywhere?
Uh, if we can talk a little bit about supply, maybe our supply chain is something that is also one of our targets. How we make it's a big challenge for all the companies. How we make our supply chain it's includes big companies, small companies, make sure that they are sustainable. How we can do that? We actually follow a group of policies for the companies, and we want to make sure that there is no corruption, and also all the policies that we have. We have a cash questionnaire that, in order to be able to sell for us, they have to go there, all size of companies, and make sure that they fulfill all those commitments. And as part of the selection of the supplier, we also consider social and environment criteria. We want to make sure that they do respect the environment, they have labor rights, and they impact how they impact the society. And all these are included in our contract. And we have this platform that they will go there, they answer that how are their rules, how they have their ethical policies, how their governance works. And for those who are, and we have a score, yeah, we always say, okay, you can provide for us if you are over that score. But what we do if they don't, because sometimes we get back to them and we say, listen, these are the points that from our point of view, you have to do it better. We have to implement that. Sometimes we sit together and say, look at what we do. We want to share our policy with them and make sure that they would be able to do the same, because I think the view that the business have nowadays are that we no longer give, like say, importance just for the shareholders. We have to all the stakeholders, and suppliers are part of the stakeholders, and we want to make sure that we also can help to increase the level of like say these commitments that they have, and make sure that they understand by doing that they are getting better jobs, better supply, and they would make even more money if they do that.
Wonderful. So integrating sustainability as an incentive for greater competitiveness also. Fantastic. Thank you. So I only have one more question to you both, Solange and Vitaly. If you could share with all of our audience here Where do you see the greatest potential in advancing sustainability in the face of all of these crises? Where's the greatest potential? Vitaly, how about we start with you? In 1 minute, can you summarize for us?
Yeah. Of course. Thank you. Yeah. First of all, I believe in people, in general, in the leadership, in leaders who can take responsibility. But the greatest potential, of course, as I mentioned, it's in people who can take responsibility, but to implement sustainable development in the face of cascading crisis. Yeah, leaders should be brave as Ukrainians. Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Thank you. And this is something that's come up from you both: vision, courage. Both of you have mentioned this. Solange, what about you? Where's the greatest
I
potential in
second
advancing
Vitaly a
sustainability?
lot. I fully agree with you, but if I can add something else, I would say the energy, as all the crises, they expose our weakness and give us a lot of opportunity, of course. And I would say that the renewable is something that can really give the energy transformation that the world need. The Secretary General says without renewables, there is no future. And I think we can do it. And then we have the conditions to use renewable energy as a path to real energy security, stable price, and sustainable employment opportunities.
Thank you so much. So we've heard from an exciting panel here from two diverse, from diverse speakers, from diverse sectors, from diverse parts of the world. But I think the message is quite clear that the SDGs are still important. Sustainability is still important as a roadmap to help us get through some of these multiple crises. And as Solange has just said, exposing some of our weaknesses and where we should be focusing a lot of attention. So I'd like to thank you both. Vitaly and Solange, and thank you all for attending this riveting discussion. I apologize for the technical difficulties we've experienced, so thanks for sticking through with us, and we hope to see you in the next session.